Hong Kong, China's trading giant, Asia's international financial center, and home to a lot, and I mean a lot of billionaires. But the city is no longer what it once used to be. Each month, hundreds of people leave for places like the UK, Canada, and Australia. Businesses are building regional offices in other cities, and tourism has been dropping like a stone. All in all, everybody wants out. Now obviously, this isn't a shocking revelation, but what if I told you that this was just history repeating itself? I'll show you what I mean. Let's rewind time back to the 1980s. Wait. Oh no. I believe we've overshot by a little bit, but it's fine. While our time machine recharges, I'd greatly appreciate it if you left us a like and hit subscribe so we can keep bringing you interesting content. Now, let me tell you about net migration, which is the number of people entering a country against the number of people leaving it. So, if the net migration rate is positive, it means more people coming in and fewer people leaving. If it's negative, well, it means...
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
Actually, you know what? We've landed on the perfect chapter of history, because for Hong Kong, the 1960s were filled with social instability, economic uncertainty, and political unpredictability. In fact, the net migration rate of Hong Kong in 1963 and 1965 was around negative 250% and negative 200% respectively. But in 1996, the tables flipped completely, with net migration rates surging to 200%. That's some insane bipolarity, especially when compared to 2021's net migration rate of negative 4.6%. But things don't just end there. The trend of emigration would stabilize through the 70s, and the second half of the decade even saw many people return to Hong Kong. That is, until we hit December 19, 1984. This time, the wave of emigration was triggered by a very special event, the Sino-British Joint Declaration, which basically spelled the details of Hong Kong's handover to China on July 1st, 1997. The thing is that no one knew what to do with the city, so it came attached with a 50-year transitionary period. Unfortunately, no one really knew what that meant either. So over the next few years, social instability, economic uncertainty, and political unpredictability consumed the city's populace. Have you started to notice a pattern here? Between 1987 and 1997, about 500,000 Hong Kongers surged outwards to create a vibrant Chinese diaspora, sprawling across the United States, Canada, Australia, and a few other places. To put things into perspective, just Toronto on its own has 6 Chinatowns. But this was a very specific type of emigration, giving rise to something called Astronaut Families. And no, I'm not talking about the 2030 Mars mission or this movie called Lost in Space.
Don't forget me!
Astronaut families are actually very popular in East Asia. The term was coined by Ai Hua-ong in her book Flexible Citizenship, describing Chinese families that live in more than one country. While parents were afraid for the future of their children, they couldn't just abandon their home and livelihoods, especially since life overseas meant starting from scratch. They wanted to wait and see what would happen in 1997. Hence, the strategy they employed was that of dividing the family and conquering the world. As painful as it was to split the family, the breadwinner stayed in Hong Kong to earn a living and support the family financially, while the other parent and children moved overseas to study and obtain foreign passports, which would serve as insurance to get them all out should they need a home away from home after 1997. This is where the transitionary period comes back into focus. After the handover, Hong Kong remained relatively unchanged and continued to prosper even in the face of the 1998 Asian financial crisis. In the following years, many Chinese families would return to Hong Kong, happy to once again be united under the same roof.
How did you find me?
That brings us back to today, almost 25 years later. For many Hong Kongers, the city is no longer what it once used to be. A According to a 2021 CUHK survey, about 60% of youth would emigrate if given the chance, compared to the 42% from a similar poll in 2019. Their optimism regarding Hong Kong's future has also slumped from an average rating of 4.37 out of 10 in 2019 to 2.95 in 2021. If you've caught onto the pattern so far, the conditions are ripe for another mass exodus. The tense events of 2019 and the COVID outbreak in 2020 have curb-stomped Hong Kong's economy and society into the ground. The Asian financial crisis I just mentioned saw Hong Kong's GDP drop by 5.9% for 1 year. If 2019, Hong Kong saw a drop of 1.6% and an even steeper fall in 2020 of 6.08%. And in general, people are just not happy. I mean, who would be excited about living in the world's fourth most expensive city with the world's highest rent and a serious case of income inequality? And unfortunately for Hong Kong, its previous positives might not be enough to entice people back this time around. At its peak in 1993, tiny Hong Kong contributed to 27% of China's GDP. Today, it accounts for less than 3% of the share. While Singapore has far left it behind, Hong Kong is also quickly losing its competitive edge to Shanghai and Shenzhen. Further policy changes and the nearing of the 50-year window signal towards a sealed fate. As a survey by the Youth Research Center shows, Hong Kongers are tired. They want a better work-life balance and social stability. For many, it might be time to head out and find those elsewhere. The question is, will people return this time around? What do you think? Do you want to stay in Hong Kong? Where would you move to if you were planning to leave? Leave us a comment and visit our link in the description box below to check out our other blogs. We'll see you in our next video.